Good morning and welcome to your first video lecture. So we have spent a lot of time talking about energy and how we power our houses and cars. For our next unit, we're going to talk about how we get energy ourselves to power our bodies and ourselves. So the first thing we need to do is look at energy on a molecular level, which is what we're doing today. So we're going to spend today and tomorrow discovering where we get energy and how our cells use it. So we're going to study the processes of photosynthesis and cellular respiration. It's going to be a lot of fun, but first we've got to figure out where the energy comes that even powers photosynthesis and cellular respiration. So the very first thing I want you to remember and start with, and we talked about this when we discussed our ecology unit, but just one more time in case, we're going to talk about the sun. So the sun is what gives everything its energy on Earth, because the sun is what powers photosynthesis. You can see from this diagram that the plant, in this case it's our grass or the producer, uses the light energy in the source of a photon, which is the light ray, to power photosynthesis. So it uses light energy to make food. Not only that, we learned that in our ecology unit that our producers also use the nutrients from the soil as well as some water to do photosynthesis. Now, we really talked about photosynthesis and we didn't go over what exactly it is, so we're going to do that now. But the next thing we need to look at, because we're looking at molecular and cellular level, is to discover the difference between a plant cell and an animal cell. I'm not sure if you've studied these before yet, but this isn't the last time you're ever going to see a plant cell or an animal cell. We're going to study these in depth when we get to biology. But our plant cells are exactly what they sound like. They're the cells that make up plants. The difference between a plant and an animal cell here is that a plant has chloroplasts, which we're going to look more in depth at, and a rigid cell wall. Now that cell wall is what gives them the ability to stand up and be very tight and tall, but the chloroplasts are what we're looking at specifically. It is inside these chloroplasts right here, you can see them in the diagram, they're green right here and green right here, that photosynthesis actually happens. So there's my rendition of a chloroplast. But if you look at the diagram on the right hand side here, we have chloroplasts as well. So photosynthesis, in short, is the process that makes food. Photo is indicating that it gets the energy from the sunlight. Synthesis means to make, so it makes energy from sunlight. And if you look at the chemical formula of photosynthesis, you can see that that's true. So in order for us to photosynthesize things, when we're going to memorize this equation right here and the equation for cellular respiration, it's going to put you ahead when you study biology. But our photosynthesis chemical formula is, it's actually 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O plus light yields, that's what the arrow means, C6H12O6, which is glucose, plus 6O2, which is oxygen. So this chemical formula is telling us that we use carbon dioxide plus water plus the energy from light to make glucose and oxygen as a byproduct. That's what happens. That's the chemical reaction that happens inside the chloroplast. Now, chloroplasts, just like it says right here, are only found within plant cells, meaning that only plant cells or producers can photosynthesize. When we studied our hydrothermal vents, we learned that some organisms can chemosynthesize, meaning that they're taking chemicals to power their food making. But that is something that we're not going to talk about in this lecture or unit. We're just talking about photosynthesis here. Alright, so we know that our green things can make their own food. We learned that in our ecology unit, but now we know on a molecular level how exactly they make that food. Again, we're going to memorize this equation right here, so don't forget it, and there should be a 6 right here in front of carbon dioxide. Now let's look. Remember we said that we pass energy in a food web or food system by eating. So these arrows indicate eating, so let's write that down in your notes. And I'd also like you to know that they're passing energy and matter as they eat. So in this case, we've got the lettuce on my hamburger or my cow that eats the grass as it grazes. And again, we know that most humans are meat and vegetable eaters, So we know that on my hamburger I also have a beef patty, so that means that the human is not only eating the green stuff, the producer, but also the primary consumer as well. And just like when they eat the lettuce or the grass, they are passing both matter and energy as well. Okay, so we've looked at plant cells. Now let's look at animal cells and see the differences. So an animal cell, again, very simple, is a cell that makes up an animal. It's lacking the rigid cell wall. It just has a cell membrane, which is perfect protection for us. And then let's look a little closer here at a specific organelle. Organelles are the different parts of the cell. Like we have a nucleus right here, or a nucleolus, a nucleus, the Golgi apparatus, with a rough ER, the Golgi apparatus right here. But that's not what we're focusing on today. We're focusing on the mitochondria, which is number 9 right here. Mitochondria, its nickname is the powerhouse of the cell. It gets that nickname because it is where cellular respiration happens. Cellular respiration is the process that makes ATP, energy, out of food. There's the mitochondria drawn up close for you. Now the chemical formula for cellular respiration is C6H12O6, which you should recognize now as glucose or sugar, plus 6O2 oxygen yields 6CO2 carbon dioxide plus 6H2O water. Location: cellular respiration happens only in the mitochondria in both plant and animal cells. That's important. So while the animal cells do not have any chloroplasts, I don't see any chloroplasts here. Number 4 here is just a ribosome, not a chloroplast. I do, however, see mitochondria in my plant cell. What do you think that means? That there are mitochondria in both the plant and animal cells? Hopefully you were able to think through and tell me that that means that cellular respiration is done in both plant and animals. Okay guys, that was your note section for today. Make your diagrams very pretty, very colorful. Make sure you write down every word that I have written down here on our notes, even these in orange right here, and labeling your arrows. It's important so that you get this good foundation so we can really study nutrition in depth. Have a great day.